Have you ever noticed that unless you happen to be Felix Unger, that the definition of a clean house from a woman and the definition of a clean house from a man differ as much as the sun differs from the moon? That point has been driven home to me over the last weeks, as my daughters have agreed to help clean up the house for the holidays. It all started a few weeks ago when my youngest daughter decided that her and her family were going to make the trip from Utah to Idaho for Thanksgiving. Oh, that was indeed wonderful news, for it meant my entire clan would be here in the valley, and that in itself was reason to be grateful and give thanks on Thanksgiving Day. Now, being what I perceived to be a clever man, I decided to recruit the aid of my other two daughters and have them come over and help tidy up the place before the big event. Well, the boulder of events that I placed in motion would have put the boulder of Sisyphus to shame and caused Zeus himself to chuckle with what I had unwillingly brought down upon myself. Now, I didn't think much about it at first. I would never say that my floor was clean enough to eat off of, but I will say with pride that neither my dogs nor the occasional stray mouse has ever become ill after nibbling the crumbs of food which were stranded on my floor, having made it past the 10-second rule point. Well, anyway, first thing that happened was my oldest daughter, whom I trust with my life, came over to the house while I was at work to help in the kitchen. I expected the usual things of filling the dishwasher, sweeping and mopping the floor, and emptying the trash. That sort of thing. After all, I'm now a confirmed bachelor, living with my grandson who is home from college for a semester. How much of a mess could we two make? My life was put on hold, and a shock of despair rushed down my spine at work as I received a simple text from my daughter. Do you mind if I throw a few things away? I was petrified. Everything I had lived for my entire life was now in jeopardy of being reduced to a trash heap. My daughter wasn't cleaning. She was organizing. Now you have to understand that my eldest daughter is the organizer extraordinaire. She has totes in her garage of every single piece of clothes she's ever wore from the time she could stand up and walk. They're all color-coded and sized just in case sometime in the future she may pull them out and use them. In fact, she had NASA caller ask her how they could rearrange the space shuttle just so they could get one more scientific experiment onto the space shuttle. I tell you, if she called me and asked if she could throw things away, I was in dire trouble. Well, I arrived home from work to find my cabinets empty and my grandson William, whose mother we're currently speaking of, sitting in a corner shaking uncontrollably. Now that I think of it, I think he was in a fetal position, sucking his thumb. In my kitchen were several piles of kitchen items. My face had gone pale, and the look of sheer terror must have been planted across my brow because my grandson slowly stood, and he pointed. This is the pile Mom definitely wants us to get rid of. This is the pile Mom says we should get rid of. This is the pile Mom says we can keep if we want, but she doesn't understand why. And this, as he pointed to the smallest pile of all, is what Mom says was okay for us to keep. I looked at the pile and I asked, well, why didn't she put them away? My grandson shuddered. I'm under strict instructions before we can put anything away. Things have to happen, and Mom is coming back to inspect. We have to clean the cabinets, dry them out, sanitize them, let them air dry, and then make sure we didn't miss anything. And if we did, we got to start all over again. With a sigh of inevitability, knowing my daughter would be back, I asked William to get me some cleaning rags. I can't, he whined with a voice and a face much like Ron Weasley when he received a howler from his mother. The ones Mom didn't throw away, she put in the laundry, and they're washing on the first sanitize cycle. The first? William slowly nodded. Yup. She said we had to run them through 2 sanitize cycles before we could use them in the kitchen. William paused for a moment. Then he added with a whisper, and she'll know if we don't. Well, the next day my eldest daughter had tag teamed with my middle daughter, Lindy, to come over and pick up where she had left off. As much as my eldest daughter is the organizer and my rock, so my middle daughter is like the Energizer Bunny on steroids. No matter what life throws at her, she just keeps going and going and going, and usually comes out on top. Plus, she makes me smile. My Lindy alone has the power to make me forget my troubles, if only for a moment, and make me feel happy when I'm sad. Now, Lindy works a full-time job, and we had agreed to meet at my house when the 2 of us had finished our day jobs. Lindy arrived with her youngest daughter, Kimmy, to help out. I had had a rough day, and so I was instructed by my daughter to sit in my comfy chair while Kimmy, William, and Lindy cleaned. Took me about 30 seconds to drift off into that twilight between reality and the dream world. Lindy took one look at the state of affairs which Eleanor had left in the kitchen and told Kimmy, you tackle the aviary room. I'll clean the rest of the house. Then we'll work on the kitchen together. I dozed off, and I woke to the sound of the shop vac starting up in the aviary room. Now, you have to understand that I have about 16 of the best trained parrots in the land. I've trained them from the time that they were little chicks, not to listen to a word I say, and I tell you they do it very well. They love to build, and so I give them containers full of straw to work with. They like to select the best pieces of straw and keep it for themselves. The rest, they magically put through the wire cage and let it land out on the carpeted floor in the sunroom. I hurriedly got up, and I had Kimmy shut off the shop vac, and I explained to her that the straw had to be swept up first because it gets stuck in the shop vac hose. Kimmy smiled and said, "Oh, go sit down. William and I got this." I returned to my seat, and I drifted off once again, only to be woken to the sound of William and Kimmy talking. "Find me a metal coat hanger. I can straighten it out and I can shove it down the hose." "It's not gonna work. The hose is clogged halfway down. Why didn't you listen to Papa?" "He's a guy. He doesn't know anything about cleaning." Well, with a chuckle of "I told you so," I muttered to myself, so only I could hear. I once again settled back into my twilight sleep. When I woke, the house was just about clean. My daughter, Supergirl, had cleaned it all. Well, as you know, every superhero has their kryptonite. My Lindy was no different. The problem is, my William, he knows what it is, and he has a knack of using it at just the right moment. Now, I can't say for sure if I was awake, if I was dreaming when what happened next unfolded, but this is how I remember it. I was woken by the sound of Lindy in the kitchen calling to Kimmy, telling her that they were finished, and they had to return home. At that moment, William said, as innocent as a newborn babe, "Oh, look, Aunt Lynn, a little brown mouse right there behind you." Suddenly, my daughter's superpowers kicked in, and she literally climbed the kitchen wall without looking back. She leapt from the wall and attached herself to the slow-moving kitchen ceiling fan. As it spun and spun around, at the appropriate moment, she swung herself and flew through the air, grabbing the ceiling fan in the north side of the living room. In the next instant, she clawed the ceiling like Spider-Man and scurried over to and grasped the blades of the south living room fan. She spun around and around, timed herself perfectly, and then without hesitation, she flew through the front alcove, opened the front door on the fly, and unceremoniously landed in the front yard, doing a crazy jig, stomping her feet while all the time trying to brush off the hundreds of mice that might have attached themselves for a ride. All this was done while William was lying on the kitchen floor, rolling with laughter, trying to get out the words, "I was only kidding." My daughter shouted back from outside, You'd better be, you little. And at that moment, she must have found religion, because the name she then called her nephew could only be interpreted by somebody who spoke tongues. Well, after she calmed down and left, I walked into the kitchen. On the surface, it looked wonderful. Then my heart stopped. For 60 years, I had been a left-handed person in a right-handed world. I had finally got my kitchen left-handed, with the forks and the silverware drawer on the left instead of the right. With the teacups, they had their handles pointed to the left so I could grab them with my left hand real easy. The food, it was set up with the best stuff behind the right side of the cupboard drawer, so I'd open the cabinet with my right hand and easily grab what I needed with my left. It was all gone. All I could do was sit in a kitchen chair and moan. It would take me months to recover from my daughter's help. Next year, it'll be easier if I just find a way for a tornado to take up residency with my kitchen and be done with it. And next month's Christmas,